Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. It's Christina from Our Wood Home. In today's video I'm going to be talking a little bit about why I do so much canning and why it's something I enjoy doing. I'm going to be doing this voiceover over some footage of me totally reorganizing my basement canned goods area. I'm just switching things around to make more sense for us. And I thought it would be a good time to talk about why I spend so much time canning. When I first got married, I didn't really have any interest in canning food, and I didn't know too much about it. I had made jam a couple times previously with my husband's mother when we were dating, but I didn't really desire to make much jam. Later, I did become interested in jam making, so I just followed the recipe that was on the box of powdered pectin. I also tried making some applesauce and attempting to can tomato puree, which did not end well at all because I wasn't aware of safe canning practices. Slowly, over the span of several years, I learned more about the different types of canning, such as water bath and pressure canning, what foods needed which method to be safe, which produce is good for canning, and which ends up really mushy. I began to experiment with recipe development for low-sugar jams and jellies, mainly because the amount of jam to fruit that was needed with the commercial powdered pectin was it was so much sugar, and I didn't want to keep spending money on so much sugar. It was really fun spending time in the kitchen and creating these recipes, canning some fruit, maybe some peaches, tomatoes, and jams. It was just a hobby though, and nothing really more than that. I learned how to distinguish safe recipes online from potentially unsafe recipes and which sources could be trusted as accurate. I began giving gifts of jam and spreads to family members, and they loved it. In 2020, like some of you maybe, I became more aware of my food supply chain. Since 2013, I had been growing vegetables on just a small scale, enough to enjoy fresh and maybe freeze or can any extra. But at that point, I became determined as we moved into summer 2020 to grow even more with the intent to preserve it. I mainly focused on growing tomatoes to can, as well as beans to either dry or freeze, and cucumbers to pickle. I don't remember how many jars of produce I ended up with, but it felt good to have a little extra stocked up for winter. I also felt a sense of pride in a good way, but maybe satisfaction is a better word for it, about being able to eat what I grew. Plus, it was good for my budget since I saved my own seeds to replant every year and didn't have to buy as much produce out of season. When I planned to can more food, I decided to store the jars on the bottom two shelves of a cabinet in my dining room. Eventually, I outgrew this space and began to use some shelves in my basement. It was August 2022 that I realized I needed way more space. I didn't really have any idea how much space though, so I planned to just use a shelving unit in the basement for both my canning supplies and the finished jars. The shelf I was expecting to use is the metal one that's on the far left in the footage above here. Several years ago, I had expressed an interest in learning to can, so my in-laws bought me a really nice pressure canner. This was prior to 2020. But I was way too scared to use it until 2022. Previously, I had only used a big water bath canner, so I was pretty limited in what I could process. I didn't love the water bath method because it uses so much water and takes such a long time to boil. In 2021, I learned about steam canning, which is safe to do for all water bath recipes, and my husband bought me a steam canner for our anniversary that year. This allowed me to can all kinds of fruits, juices, and tomatoes in a much faster way. When I finally did begin to use my pressure canner, I realized it was not safe to use on my stovetop since it's a glass top. Some pressure canners are safe to use on ceramic or glass tops, but mine wasn't. Thankfully, I was able to use an outdoor propane burner and it worked just fine. In August 2022, I pressure canned some homegrown corn and later some homegrown beans. Once I got the hang of pressure canning, I realized I could make so many meals in jars. Soups, stews, chili, even just plain meat. My husband surprised me with a new pressure canner that's designed for smooth top stoves. I got this recently actually, Christmas 2023. I was so excited because that meant I could can any time of day, in any weather, any time of year, because I didn't have to go outside. Previously, I was relying on good weather, not too hot so that I was comfortable, but not windy or rainy so that I could safely keep my propane flame lit. Canning outdoors in the heat or wind was not ideal, so this gift of my new pressure canner has allowed me to can all year long. Honestly, it's a lot of work to plant a lot of vegetable seeds, tend to the large gardens, harvest everything, and then can it for later. It's also a lot of work and very time consuming to watch the grocery store flyers for sales on seasonal produce that I can't grow, such as pineapple, peaches, and cranberries, but that I want to buy and preserve. Many times I've complained to my husband how it doesn't seem worth the effort. Why am I spending all day cooking and canning 8 jars worth of beef chili? Why did I buy so many pounds of peaches and can 25 liters worth when I could just buy frozen any time of the year? I answered these questions for myself recently. First of all, having ready-made meals was so amazing. When I was very sick this past fall season, I felt awful and had no energy for most of October and November, even into December, but thankfully we had lots of delicious meals my husband could quickly open and heat up after work. And talking about peaches, they are one of my favorite fruits, but the growing season is pretty short. We can't even grow them in my area, but they are shipped up from southern Ontario, so I make sure to buy a lot because the price is really good. I've been drinking a lot of fruit smoothies lately, and I'm so thankful to have liters and liters of canned peaches in my basement ready to use whenever I need them. We try to eat as seasonally as much as possible, and to only buy produce that's grown in Canada, preferably Ontario. Of course, some things like oranges will never grow here, so if we want to eat them, we just buy them any time of year. Being able to can strawberries in July, peaches in August, and pineapple in winter gives us a much more varied diet since we can be eating these things that I've canned all year long. At times, I wonder if it really is cost effective to be canning so much. When my family and friends began to comment on rising grocery prices, I decided to start saving my receipts from each of my planned grocery trips to compare with prices in the future. But honestly, I didn't really notice an increase on the items that I was buying, although butter was getting pretty expensive. I did, however, realize that I was actually spending less on groceries when others were facing higher and higher costs. How can this be? Well, I truly believe it's because we had so much home canned food to eat, so we didn't need to purchase as much. Of course, I spend a fair bit of money up front for the seasonal produce, but we budget for me to be able to do that. In addition to having food security and saving money, canning is just a fun thing I enjoy doing. There's a real sense of accomplishment looking at my jars of food. When I want to make a meal, I can go down to my basement into my little grocery store. I fill up my basket with jars, be that chicken soup or several jars of different vegetables to complement some game meat my husband has in his freezer. The food tastes better and is more enjoyable too. As you can see from this footage, I've taken over a pretty big section of our basement with just food storage. In this video, I had all of my jars arranged by when they were canned, So the gray shelf on the far left was things in June and July, just going down the shelves up until the end of the year. But this really wasn't working for us anymore, so I decided to rearrange everything by category. So the shelf I'm working on the far right now, that's all vegetables and fruit. And then on the middle shelf is going to be meals and I think some jams on the bottom. And then the metal shelf on the left is all liquids, so juices and broths. Let me close out this video by saying that I'm not an expert or a pro or anything like that. I'm still learning about canning and I'm open to instruction and advice from others who have more experience. If you have been wanting to start canning but are afraid or don't know where to start, my suggestion is to just go for it. Check out some canning books from the library or find some trusted sources online. I'll be sure to link my favorite websites in the description of this video. I hope that you enjoyed hearing my thoughts on canning and why I do it and a little bit about how I got started. If you did like this video, please leave a comment down below. Be sure to like and also subscribe if you like what you see here on my channel. Thank you so much for watching and have a great rest of your day.